Hello everyone and welcome back to the second game of the rapid tiebreaks of the 2022 FIDE Grand Prix, currently being played in Berlin. It's Levon Aronian versus Hikaru Nakamura. Nakamura won his game with the white pieces. It was a very tough struggle, but in the end he was a little bit faster, and that means a lot when it's a complicated end game. He was able to prevail there, and now Levon has the white pieces and he needs to win this in order to push even further into the tiebreaks, or if Hikaru gets a draw here with the black pieces, then Hikaru wins the entire thing. Rather, he wins the first leg of the FIDE Grand Prix, and he is one step closer to the candidates tournament. So let's see what happened in game 2. Levon with the white pieces opens with e4. We have e5 by Hikaru, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. So again, we have a nice gioco piano. The Italian game is on the board, and now castles by white. So not doing anything crazy here. Knight to f6 and now rook to e1. Defending the e4 pawn, we have d6 and now c3. So this is all very standard stuff. We have a6 making room for the bishop on a7, d4 striking in the center, and the bishop back to a7. We have h3, and now, well, there are a couple of moves that were played in this position. For example, queen to e7 is a known move, but here we have castles, and it is now already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So Levon continues developing. We have bishop to e3, and now we have h6. If you're thinking about why not capture the e4 pawn, well, it's one of the very well-known tricks in the gioco piano. For example, if knight captures on e4, d5 is deadly. So what can you play here? The knight here is attacked. If you move the knight, then we capture the bishop. Rook captures, we capture the knight on e4. If you play something like bishop captures on e3, we can play rook captures on e3, and now again this knight and this knight are hanging. And if we try knight to a5, so we attack the bishop here, we just play bishop to f1. And now what do you do here? If you play f5 to defend this knight, or if you move it, we play b4, and this knight is now trapped. No square left for this knight. Or even after rook captures on e3, well, there's really no good move you can make here. Best is just to play knight captures on f2, king captures, and then take it from there. Knight e7. Maybe you can now try and make something here with black, but white should always be better. So after bishop to e3, Hikaru just plays h6. He wants none of this craziness. He only needs a draw to win the FIDE Grand Prix. We have bishop back to b3, and now rook to e8. Levon very nicely chose a line where nothing gets traded off. You can see that all the pawns are still on the board, all the pieces are still on the board. He wants to slow play this as much as possible and look for some chances anywhere where Hikaru might give him some. So knight b to d2, we have bishop to d7, continuing development, and now queen b1, defending the e4 pawn. So now the knight can move. Maybe you can shift it over to g3, put it on f5, create some chances there. So queen to e7, and now a3. We have queen to f8, Hikaru also nicely just remaneuvering, and the queen back to d3. We have b5 by Hikaru, and now Levon plays rook 8 to c1. We have knight to a5, again another standard maneuver. We want to attack the bishop, we want to play c5, attack the center, and then, well, either we're going to force white to open up the center or to close it permanently with d5. So bishop back to a2, and Levon is now ready to play bishop to b1, and then the queen-bishop battery will be, well, not fully operational, but if the e4 pawn moves, then it could be important. So c5, Hikaru strikes against the center, and now b3. We have knight back to c6, putting even more pressure on the d4 pawn, and here Levon just closes it with d5. So as you can see, still nothing has been traded. We are already on move 18. Knight to e7, now comes c4. Improving the structure here, asking black, do you maybe want to capture on c4, but Hikaru just goes knight to g6. And now you could consider keeping the tension with bishop to b1 and just continue to slow play this, but here Levon plays b4, and now there certainly will be some captures on the board. Now the position will open up. So here we have c captures on b4, we have a captures on b4, b captures on c4, bishop captures on c4, bishop captures on e3, rook captures on e3, and now rook e to b8, saying, okay, if you capture on a6, I'm going to capture on b4, and then with everything traded off on the queen side, I mean, it's a pretty close structure in the center. Nothing much happening on the king side. I'm very happy with a draw. A draw is basically a win for me, says Hikaru. So here we have queen to a3, just defending the b4 pawn. Levon cannot really afford to trade this. We have queen to d8, and now bishop back to f1. But now Hikaru just offers further trades. We have bishop to b5. So here we have queen to a5. Levon offers a queen trade here, and Hikaru happily accepts. But first he trades even more material. Bishop captures on f1, queen captures on d8, rook captures, and now king captures on f1. Now coming rook d to b8, again putting pressure on the b4 pawn. So Levon defends it. We have rook to b3, and now Hikaru plays rook to b5. He wants the increase the pressure on the b file, even though a5 is pretty much an instant draw, but you have to be very careful. The thing is, of course, if b5, white advances the pawn. Okay, white has a pass pawn, but then we also have a pass pawn with a4, so that's one way to do it. And another way is that if you capture here, we can capture here, and now yes, the knight defends this pawn, but you can grab the e4 pawn now. And now, do you want to trade this for the passed a pawn? Yes, of course, it's easy after the game to claim that this is a draw. But, you know, just because it's an equalish or an equal position does not mean that it's an immediate draw. So, of course, Hikaru plays rook to b5. Better to play maybe a slower move, but, you know, nothing, no drastic measures have been taken. So here, rook b5, knight to e1, and now knight to e8. Both players are now putting their pieces on optimal squares. Knight to d3, and now f5 by Hikaru. We have f3. F captures on e4, F captures on e4, and now knight to f4. Hikaru offers further trades. So knight captures on f4, e captures, and now king to e2. Levon starts bringing his king into the game. Now rook 8 to b8. We want to capture the pawn on b4. So rook c to b1, defending the pawn, and now knight to f6. Paralyzing the knight, the pawn would hang if the knight moves, so we're going to play king f3, defend our pawn, and now g5. So Hikaru is very, very happy here. There is not all that much Levon can do to create some chances. So knight to c4. Now the knight can move as the this pawn is very well protected. The pawn is hanging here, and Hikaru again. Maybe you can go for something like a5, saying that okay, now we're gonna capture here, or you capture on a5, and then we play rook to e8, go after this pawn. But of course it's a rapid game. You don't want to spend too much time. So Hikaru just goes knight e8, defends the pawn, and now h4. Levon has to create some chances here. We have rook to c8, attacking the knight, knight to a5 now. We have knight to f6, and here we have h captures on g5, h captures, and knight to c6. So this knight certainly made some progress. It was quite a journey, now threatening knight to e7 check to pick up the rook here. So of course, rook to e8 with a double attack on the pawn here, and now knight to d4. Here, Levon attacks the rook here. G4 with check. A very nice trick. Now inviting the king to capture on f4. If you don't do this, then that's pretty much game. So king captures on f4, and now rook captures on e4 with check. Now the knight is gonna fall, but okay, you don't lose a piece. King f5, you attack the black knight on f6. Rook captures on d4, king captures on f6, and now rook d captures on d5. And now we have this position where it's Hikaru who's up a pawn, but it's something Levon had to allow if he wants to get any winning chances, because for Levon a draw is basically a loss, so he has to play the game on for as long as possible, and maybe he can win somehow. So here the problem is if a5 happens, then he will no longer have any motives to try and create chances to win the game. So he has to move the rooks. We have rook to f1. He doesn't want to trade rooks. Now even if a5, we're just going to move the rook. So here Hikaru plays a rook to h5, and Hikaru sets a deadly trap, but it's very hard to see it. And here the thing is, you have to play something like king to g6. You play king to g6, and now we probably have a perpetual here. Rook here, check, king here, rook here, king here, rook here, and it's going to be a draw by perpetual, most likely. However, Levon cannot allow this. He played rook to f4, and now he is threatening to pick up this pawn with check, but also he just ran into a deadly trap. So feel free to pause the video here and win the game for Hikaru and the entire FIDE Grand Prix while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this, well, brilliant king hunt. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is, of course, rook to h6 with check. And now you see this rook covers the 5th rank, this rook covers the 6th rank, the king covers these squares. So the only square left for the white king is the e7 square. This is what Levon played. Now comes rook b7 check. And now look at this. This is the 6th rank, this is the 7th rank. Only squares available to the white king are these two squares, and it doesn't matter. Both of them lose the game. Levon played king to d8, and now Hikaru played the only winning move, and that is rook to h8. Probably most likely the one that Levon missed when he played rook to f4. And now when Levon saw this, it was in this position on move 50 that he resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. It looks like maybe you can defend this with white, but whatever you try, it's not going to work. The black king is simply threatening king to h7, and then it's going to be checkmate, or rather, first you're going to have to give up the rook, and then it's going to be checkmate. So there are two ways you can try to defend this. One is to attack this rook, but then we just play rook g7, and now there's nothing you can do. King h7 will be checkmate, and on the other hand, after rook to h8, you could try something like rook to e3 to meet rook h7 with something like rook here, but white is always a tempo short. For example, king h7 check, you're going to block check, but now the other rook delivers check, and now we're going to pick up the rook here. Whatever the white king plays, we can just pick up the rook with check, and that's it. We're up a rook. Very soon we're going to win the game. So yeah, after rook to h8, Levon resigned, and Hikaru takes wins in both of the games of the rapid tiebreaks of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022. So it was a really tough match. In classical, as you've seen, neither player could do anything, but it seems that the faster the time format gets, the stronger Hikaru gets, and here Hikaru was just better, outplaying Levon in both games in the end game. Okay, it's always like that. If one player wins the first game, then in the second one the other has to take more and more chances, and then this is the most likely result. However, you know, but sorry, regardless, it was a fine showing by both Levon and Hikaru. So yeah, big congratulations to Hikaru. We'll see what happens in the next two legs of the FIDE Grand Prix. Hikaru is now closer and closer to the candidates tournament. Will we see Hikaru in the candidates tournament, or will Hikaru only win a spot in the candidates and then give it away to Ding Liren, as he mentioned? We'll see what happens, but chess, as always, is very interesting. So yeah, that's the game, and this very short coverage of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Paul Worthington, and I would like to thank Francis Air, the emoji pillow on my couch, Odalt, and Lucifer 45 non-commercial EP for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.